I believe we are live. Welcome, everybody, to episode 37 now we're up to of Flooded Cinema. And this is the beginning of what is a very special month. I know you think it's a month to celebrate one sort of thing, but actually here in the Flooded Basement, we're celebrating White History. That's right, it's White History Month. And to get us started, we're covering 1977, I believe, The Duelist, directed by Ridley Scott. And I'm joined today by two esteemed guests, Nooch and Jacaranda Plus. Say hello, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
Now, I didn't check your volumes actually before we started, but that's okay. Say hello again.
Hello again.
Hello again.
All right, we're good. We're good. Um. Oh, and we have the Iron Duke is watching. Hello, Iron Duke. That I've been a guest on your show before. It's nice to see you checking out some other programming. So yes, today normally we do double features, but I have been lazy, and it was just sort of a bit of a last minute thing that we organized. So we're just doing one movie today, and that'll probably be the case for the rest of this month, just because a lot of the movies we're going to be tackling are like 3 hours long, and I can't be bothered watching 6 hours of movies when I'm working full time now. No longer a NEET. Anyway, let's get started. The Duelists. So, do you want to start us off, Nooch? Just tell us your first impressions, like how you first encountered this film, things
How I
like
first
that.
encountered this film. I
Yes.
can do that. So it was about 4 years ago, and I'd come across dueling, just the concept of dueling. I think maybe um, in like history of some case like dueling in late 18 or sorry late 1700s or 1800s. And then I was like, man, dueling's really cool. Some guys talking mad trash, and then you're like, you know what? Let's fight it out. Honor, baby. I will kill you, and then you fight, and then obviously the duels that are to the first blood, and the other ones to the death, and it kind of varies. But then I was just looking up, um, I think just like dueling videos on YouTube or dueling history, and then I saw this movie, and then I was like, oh, there's a whole movie about it, and then I saw it was made by Ridley Scott, and I've watched Blade Runner and Gladiator, and I was like, you know what, I think this could be good, and then I saw on YouTube a video came up with the first duel from the movie, and it said some of the best I guess swordplay in movies, and then I heard. In the video and elsewhere that I had good reviews. Okay, this is like the most realistic sword fighting that you'll get. And then also I saw that this movie had been awarded like a best I guess first breakout film for a director. So then I was
Yeah.
like, okay, well, I guess I'll watch it. And then I did, and it was very very again the swordplay was very good. That was the first straw for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I can't remember where I saw it. It was a similar sort of thing. Like it was on some list for like realistic historical films or something like
Mm,
that, and this was on the list, and it just looked interesting to me because I think at the time it would have been around the time when I maybe had first seen Taxi Driver or something, and so um, I was like, oh, Harvey Keitel, what's he doing in this movie? Because it's a very different role to
yeah,
his role in Taxi Driver. Well, I mean, anyway, but he plays a villain in both, obviously, but it's just sort of interesting seeing him going from being a New York pimp to now a soldier in the Napoleonic Army. Um, but yeah, obviously it's a great movie, and yeah, it's very unique in Ridley Scott's filmography. But we'll get into that, I think, after we've discussed the movie a bit. And Jack, your first impressions, first thoughts, your history with it.
Uh, I found it through watching Matt Easton on YouTube.
I do
The
not know who
channel
that is.
he has a channel Scholar Gladiatorio.
Uh huh.
He's like one of those sort of history, like ancient medieval sort of Napoleonic combat dudes.
Okay. Yeah.
Like he talks about that, and he did an episode talking about the duels in the Duelist,
Mm,
and that's sort of where I found it.
yeah. It's obviously it's an amazing movie. I think we would all agree that it's really good. I don't know. Let's actually get into it now. I guess Jack, do you wanna give us the brief synopsis of what it's about?
All right, so the Duelists is about it's set during the Napoleonic era, and it tells a story of two Napoleonic officers, Armand Dubert and Gabriel Ferrot, and
Mm-hmm.
it's basically just a story of Ferrot continually challenging Dubert to duels. It started off by an initial sort of slight or insult towards him, and then over time the insult becomes forgotten, and they're just dueling for the sake of it until one of
Yeah.
them, presumably until one of them dies.
Yeah.
And Dubert the whole time is just confused by what is happening because it's completely one-sided.
Yeah.
He has no wish to engage in any of this,
Yeah.
but due to his own
Sense of honor
um, sense of honor,
Yeah.
and
he's
and
obliged to
reputation.
engage. Yeah, and reputation.
Mm. Um. Yeah. It's very much. Uh, it's a very episodic sort of movie. It sort of follows
Hmm.
the career of these two soldiers, and it's very much like it's each episode or each chapter or vignette or whatever you want to call it is centered around one interaction or one duel between them, because each time it happens it's unresolved basically.
Yeah.
And so um, yeah, I quite like the episodic feel to this. I think and Iron Duke has mentioned in the chat that it's based on a Joseph Conrad short story, and
Hmm.
I think you definitely get a lot of Conrad's uh, like insightful psychology, particularly in what's his name, Ferez. What's his name again?
Ferrell.
Furrow.
Farrell. Farrell, the
Ferrell.
producer. Farrell.
Will Ferrell.
Yeah, no, he's Farrell. In his psychology, because
Mhm.
it's very much a character study of two different characters as and then it ultimately, what you sort of realize is it's a character study of the two competing forces during the Napoleonic era. It's like a very it's like a microcosm of the macrocosm at the time, set within the macrocosm. It's very amazing, like
It's a
piece
way
of
of
writing.
like
Yeah,
it's a way of exploring the main like historical elements of the period without being beholden to
yeah,
sort of respecting actual events.
events. Yeah,
You're telling a fictional or
yeah,
semi, because obviously it's inspired by a true story, but you've got enough room. Like you've changed the names of the people it was inspired by, and you get to use it to like Thoreau is one of the most obvious. Like just he's a straight up comparison for
Napoleon.
Napoleon.
Yeah,
Like
short
he
stature and
has a
everything.
Short,
shorter
hot-headed.
stature from a lower class background
Yeah,
who's only been allowed to get ahead like he has because of the revolution,
yeah. Um,
which is where his some of his animosity towards De Hubert comes from. Because De Hubert is he is a he's sort of lesser nobility, so he was a noble class that could survive the revolution. Basically,
yeah,
they weren't he wasn't high enough to be targeted, but they could just sort of keep away and sort of maintain most of their wealth.
yeah,
But obviously, being nobility, lesser nobility, he's in the military, and
yeah,
that's mainly how he has his rank.
yeah,
Is because of his noble status.
yeah,
And so this just sort of sets off this rage in Furo. When he looks at the bear, he sees everything that he hates, basically,
yeah,
and so he magnifies all of the like basically any word said to him by the bear becomes some sort of attack or slight against him.
yeah. And I love how Thoreau's persistence in like dueling is sort of, that's supposed to be a parallel to Napoleon's constantly wanting to expand his empire basically.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like as you go along it becomes increasingly absurd that he would want to keep dueling, and as that's happening the Napoleonic Empire is expanding. Like each episode the empire's expanded further and further, and it's when you eventually get to the part where they're in Russia, and it's completely absurd. Like they're at this camp, they're all starving, they're dying of hypothermia, and he still wants the duel, and they go out, and it's a really amazing. I think, obviously, the truths that the movie gets at are really interesting, but I think just the mechanics of it, the microcosm macrocosm thing, for me as someone that's interested in writing, it's a really great way to approach a political topic or like an ideological topic without it, coming off as like TV movie where it would be if you just made it about Napoleon and you added all these fake characters in around him, sort of thing. It's really good.
So the thing I'm curious about is I understand, especially when they get to Russia, and again, it's absurd. People are dying, including Keitel's or Faro's friends, right? His main homies who you see walk around with him throughout the entire movie, who are also antagonizing on the behalf of Faro, antagonizing Cardine's character. Yeah. Even you find them dead, but Faro's still willing to fight. But Cardine or Joubert, it's an ebb and flow, right? So in the first, he's willing to.
We should mention, sorry. Joubert is played by Keith Carradine.
Yeah, sorry,
famously the Carradine that is not dead, or did not
suspicious die. Means.
Yeah. Anyway.
But so Carradine's character, or Joubert, he gets he's willing to fight the first duel, but not while he's on military service, right? So the general says, hey, Faro has really made a mistake. He's caused me trouble. Go tell him he's under house arrest. He goes to do it, right? He interrupts, basically, I guess, not a booty call, but Faro's enjoying a nice time at Madame de Lyon's house, who's just some form of French noble that still exists, or maybe a new French noble, I don't know. But he's enjoying that, even though at the party you see he's kind of not paying attention. But so he gets called out by Carradine's character, not publicly, but that's where it leads to, hey, you've insulted me, through, I guess, just the conduct of it all, and then so Keitel forces him into a duel while he's on military service. But again, Carradine is a man. He gets pushed too far. And eventually, he's like, okay, fine, we're doing this. I'm going to defend my honor. I'm going to shut you up, boy. And then so they go and fight. And then so that one ends. He more or less wins, but it still ends in a draw, right? So I understand from there why he's willing to fight the second duel. And it's very quickly after. I understand why he's willing to do it. But then on to the third duel, he's still willing to do it. So the first three duels, he's perfectly fine, right? He's still, obviously, Faro is a badger, and in between the fights, he's still like, I don't know why we're having to do this. It's something first it starts off with something very slight. Later on, he's like, just ask him, I don't know. And then everyone around him, either you got people like, oh man, these guys just keep fighting duels, or you have the main love interest, I forget who it's played by, but she's like, it's a secret between you two, isn't it? No one else knows.
Yeah.
That's what people are saying.
Yeah.
So Carradine's character, at first, the first three duels, he's fine with it, but eventually into the fourth duel, and this is the time jumps. The first three duels happen within, since it starts with 1802 in Strasbourg, which is a part of, I think, the Rhine in Germany now, between Germany and France, but it starts there, and the first three happen very quickly in succession, and then it jumps 6 years to, I believe, Lubeck in Germany, and then that's where they've been promoted from their lower ranks. Now they're both captains, and within the movie they have to be of the same rank to duel. It'd be a breach of military conduct. They cannot be at war either, and they have to be in the same place, right? So one of the other characters gives advice to Carradine's character, follow these three rules, keep away from him, keep ahead of him, and that's and put your trust in Bonaparte. That's how you'll avoid fighting any more duels. And so into the fourth duel, which is them on cavalry with sabers. Dubert's like had enough. He's like, I don't want to do this anymore. All right. He's just like at the beginning of the duel he's even scared almost, but he goes through like a PTSD flashback. But that duel ends in his success, and so I guess I'm explaining this whole timeline. But then into the fifth duel, which is what I'm not quite sure. He's willing to go and fight, right? So that's in Russia. Everyone's freezing, and then Faro's like, hey, Pharaoh's like, "Hey, yo, that forest, too many Cossacks. We gotta check it out. Where's the volunteers?" Right? He's
Yeah.
basically baiting out Dubert, and Dubert he just stands up. He's like, "I'll go," and then they go out, and they both
Yeah.
have the same look on their face, right? So Dubert's no longer not in the last duel where he's kind of scared. He doesn't want to do it, but the cavalry, both their regiments, expect it of them, and of course, Pharaoh wants to do
Yeah.
it because that's just his nature. He's the rabid duelist.
I think
But then,
there's an element with Dubert in that scene where he's seen the horrors of the French retreat from Russia,
uh,
and he's just like, fuck it.
yeah,
I,
willing to,
I,
willing
I,
to
I don't
die,
mind if
willing
I
to die.
die here.
Yeah, okay, that's
So
why. That's
if I die in this duel, it'll probably save me a lot of suffering.
that's
in
what
the
I
end, you know?
assumed. That's what I
Yeah.
assumed.
Yeah.
And then but at the end, so the duel it gets interrupted by said Cossacks, and this is the one time they work together, as they're
Yeah.
supposed to in the military. And they kill one of the Cossacks, the other ones run off.
The
And
Cossack, who by the way was offering them food.
offering food, yeah, yeah. He was asking if you hungry, and then laughing, and then they just shoots him in the
They
chest.
shoot him.
But at the end, they look at each other, use both their pistol shots, and obviously, I think maybe they kind of snap to. Wait a minute, we're still in enemy lands.
Yeah.
And then Dubert looks to Pharaoh, and he's like, "Pistols next time," which, by the way, in historical context, because so this was based upon that short story, and that short story was actually based upon two generals in Napoleon's army who actually fought, I believe, potentially upwards of 17 duels.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
Yeah, there's actually a lot more. And so
Well, truth
in
is
person,
stranger than fiction, as they say.
isn't it? Isn't it? But so in real life, the names aren't the exact same, obviously, but the character Dubert is based on would be willing to fight duels, but never with pistols for whatever reason. And I believe they never even fought a pistol duel, but the last duel, eventually after those many years of dueling, he's like, fine, I'll do a pistol duel. And I believe by that point, the Napoleonic France had fallen apart, and then they had been dealt with legalistically. But so in the movie, he's like, okay, pistols next time, and I guess more or less this is to signify the end, yeah. And then
Yeah.
so I guess I guess yeah. So I understand within Russia, he's willing to fight because they're almost gonna die. But then pistols next time, they might be going back to France. So it's been interesting, I guess. So Carradine, I guess he's still or I guess Dubert, he's still a duelist, not on the same level. But
I think at that point he's sort of like, particularly in Russia, he kind of accepted this fate because he had been at war so long. It was this just part of him, and I think that the next section when he falls in love with like that really lovely woman is when he sort of he sort of, and like he's then the Napoleonic era is over, the revolution's over, he can go back to being like a small time duke or whatever he was. He like becomes it's out of his system. He's grown up. He's a married man. He doesn't care about that sort of thing anymore, and that's why he has his hesitancy, I think, at the end. But yeah, I think the Russia thing is sort of unique because of the specific context.
Yeah, that's what I assumed. I wasn't sure, so I wanted to confirm with the council. But
yeah, I just want to before like it, I want to discuss what the initial slight a bit more, because I think that's sort of it is almost brushed over in the film, and because like it is such a small, it's like Pharaoh is not even necessarily upset that he's being placed under house arrest. I mean, he is to a certain extent, but it's just yeah, I guess it's interesting that he's upset that he got embarrassed in front of this woman, and it's not like the woman even knew what was going on, and that's sort of what upset him.
Care.
Yeah, like she wasn't even particularly interested in him, but it's yeah, and of course the movie opens with Pharaoh killing some guy, and yeah, he gets
It's the nephew of the mayor of Strasbourg.
Yeah. And the nephew lived, the general said, but more or less is how he was described. But so still basically killed him.
Yeah, they just maimed him. But it's interesting that then as the movie goes along, Carradine he like at first he's sort of coy about it, and then towards the end he's like, I don't even know why we're fighting anymore, basically, when he is asked about it. And then obviously everyone is like, why are you fighting, why are you fighting? And it's, I guess it's sort of it's kind of, again, it's that reflection on Napoleon, like why is Napoleon doing what he's doing necessarily, is kind of, I guess, the metaphor at hand there. And yeah, it's just like, it's an attempt to understand, I guess, that revolutionary impulse. And the movie's conclusion is obviously it's this kind of inadequacy at fate, or this like distaste of one's own birth and things like that, and place in the world, is at least what the movie sort of says, I guess, about the situation, which I think is kind of interesting.
One thing about Keitel or Thoreau's character is, especially after the first 2 or 3 duels, he starts to, so later in the movie he starts to slander his character. But even in the 4th duel, he says we should have a duel to the complement of the cavalry. So basically, he's playing, from what I saw, he's playing with the people around, or the whole atmosphere around Dubert's character, to basically force him, or to really try to excite him. Because I guess Fro, he's not dumb entirely, right? He's a military officer, gets to the same rank, but he's doing things to entice, or to really force, I guess, Dubert to continue to come back to the table, because Fro, obviously, he wants to fight, but Dubert might not. So that was So he eventually gets, even again, Cardine's like main friend, more or less, the one soldier you keep seeing him with. He's like, you have to fight. You have to fight. We all expect it, bro. You just fight. Yeah. And then so he's got basically everyone turned against him, right? Or at least everyone that we know of. And then later on, he also slanders. So I guess, I don't know. That's just another main part of his character, to get the outcome that he wants.
I don't know. Is there anything else you guys want to say about this particular topic? Or I guess we should talk about the actual filmmaking qualities a little bit as well.
We can move on.
I think one of the most amazing things for me is the what do you call it? The locations. The locations are honestly like half the film in some cases. I think up on the screen here, I've put a still from the film, from what I believe is their second duel with that big giant like tree bush in the background, and it's just such a and like every single shot, it's it's either on some flat I should say, farmland, and there's a few sheep here and there, and it's just, you feel like really immersed in the world, and they just do it by just having, it's not like they have crazy amounts of characters on the screen at any one time, but they use having a couple other extra characters in the scene, like, just fill out the world, and you feel so immersed in Napoleonic France. If you compare it to a lot of even other big budget period films, you don't feel like you're in the setting at all, even though they'll have scenes with hundreds of people or whatever, but because they just don't capture the feel of it, whereas they do with this movie so well. Obviously the costumes are incredible, and and like, I think, like, even the duel they did when they're sort of like in that underground, I don't know what it was, if that was like a slaughterhouse or a jail or something, or whatever it was, that
it's just some brick.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was, and they're like, that while they're fighting, there's like the little kid and that sort of sneaks in to have a look at what's happening, and it's just the way that they do the framing for each of the duels is like, it's unique every time, but not in a gimmicky way.
Each duel is like, it shows you different ways a duel can go.
Yeah.
Like, you have the initial one, which is basically, it's not anything remarkable. It's it's just a duel, and then it's over with a lucky cut to the wrist, and that's as easy as it happens.
Yeah.
That's how easily you can lose something. And then the second one is an example of a very quick duel, which would how most of them would go historically. There'd be 2 or 3 movements, and one of you is incapacitated or dead. and then you get
The third.
the third. Is that that's the second saber duel, and
Yeah,
that's in
yeah,
the
that's in the
building,
tunnel.
isn't it?
Where
Which
they're, where
is
they're,
where you get into one where it hasn't gone quickly, and they've been going for ages, and they are extremely worn out to the point where they can't even swing their swords properly, and they just have to basically call it quits when they start wrestling each other.
yeah. Yeah, and
And
then
then
there's the
the fourth one is the
horse.
one on horseback.
Yeah.
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 And the fifth is pistol.
Before I forget, I just wanted to also mention, I should have said this before, is obviously Harvey Keitel uses his American accent, and then that's obviously extremely deliberate to sort of just say he's, revolutionary, lower class, etc., etc., because that's sort of, yeah. I can't imagine Harvey Keitel using a British accent. I wonder if he ever does in a
No.
movie. Yeah, but no, that was another little thing I wanted to mention. But yeah,
Whereas Keith Carradine, despite being
British
an American, is doing a
British accent.
English accent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or English, yes, I should say. Um, yeah, yeah. Cinematography is amazing.
It was it was inspired by Barry Lyndon,
Yes.
because Flood and I mentioned it whilst we were watching it. We mentioned that it looked like a similar style to Barry Lyndon,
Yeah.
and then I looked into it, and Ridley Scott has said that it was an explicit attempt to
Yeah.
recreate that style.
Yeah. I think if I was gonna watch them in any particular order, I'd probably watch this and then Barry Lyndon. So this eases you into it a bit more, that sort of aesthetic and period, and then just because Barry Lyndon is
It's this is less obtuse
yeah, Barry
than
Lyndon
Barry
is
Lyndon.
extremely enigmatic. Like Barry Lyndon, despite it being set in the 18th century, it reminds me more of like a 20th century novel in sort of how enigmatic it is and how distant the characters are. Like it's very much Kubrick in terms of how distant the characters
Like,
are. But anyway,
not
we're
only
not here to
are
review Barry Lyndon. But
well,
go
no,
ahead. Yeah.
we're talking Barry Lyndon films. I was gonna get to Barry Lyndon. I will.
Yeah.
We'll move on.
Yeah. That's the thing about.
Don't mention Kubrick around me.
I know, that's what
doing all that
happens. As
research.
soon as you mention Kubrick, it's like, oh, yeah, let's talk about The Shining now. No, okay. But yeah, so it is cinematography is obviously very Barry Lyndon influenced. It has that sort of very romantic, almost, I don't know what the word is, like very warm, natural look, obviously, and it's not, the colors aren't,
That's the name for the style, is naturalistic,
yeah.
because it's inspired by the naturalistic painting movement that happened during the Napoleonic Wars.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I like, the colors aren't over or under saturated. It's just, it's that very natural sort of look, but you still get the colorfulness from the costumes, but it feels like in a historically grounded sort of way. It's not, I don't know what, but yeah, that's one thing I absolutely hate about most period films is the color correction is just so, like everything has horrible color correction nowadays. Like I don't understand. The Northman was better than some things, but it was everything's too stark.
That had a darker
Yeah,
color palette, sort of for the tone,
it suited
rather
the
than
tone.
trying to go with the
Yeah, but I just miss.
It wasn't darker because the director thought the Middle Ages were literally dark.
It was because it was but
Robert Eggers is actually well researched.
But yeah, I just love the naturalistic. It's not. It doesn't feel. I mean, it obviously is a period piece, but it doesn't have a lot of tropes that a lot of certain period pieces have. Certainly modern ones. Like obviously, there's no like black character or female character where it's like, oh, actually the women are good at fighting too, or something like that. It's you just feel completely immersed to the point where you don't even notice that it's a different time period. I don't know what it is. Like you just are so there. It's so immediate, the feel to it. That it was not a very good description, but I if you watch the movie, you'll know what I'm getting at. Hopefully.
Hmm. The one thing
Well,
was
I think part of it was because most historical films they hire a historian consultant, so they can say that they've got one,
Yeah.
and they can put in the credits and say historical consultant, whoever, and it's relatively famous historian. And then at no point during the filming has the director actually listened to them. You know, they'll be on set and they'll go, what do you think of this? And the consultant will point out everything that's wrong. They'll go, okay, and then just ignore everything he said.
Yeah.
Or they'll say, what's some really obscure, interesting thing from
Yeah.
history? What looks really cool? And they'll
Yeah.
point something out. Then the historian will classify, but this was really rare. You really shouldn't have that be common. And they'll go, okay, and then put that in everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is basically how you get black people in the medieval period. You're telling me there was one. You're telling
Yeah.
me there's a painting of one black dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the Queen was black.
Bruh. But
But this was a movie where he actually listened to the historical. There's a military
Yeah.
historian, Richard Holmes, that he actually
okay.
listened to.
Yeah. I love like even the dialogue scenes and stuff in this. Like they're a little slower, but obviously because they're just people talking or whatever. But it's still the lighting and the sets and everything and the direction is really good. I think the only character that I dislike, I certainly dislike, and you're meant to sort of dislike her, is like his first Keith Carradine's
First love interest.
yeah, his
Yeah.
first love interest who is like the camp whore or whatever what do you call her? You
What
know
are there is a specific name for them.
follower, camp follower or
A
something?
camp follower. Yeah.
She is the 18th century lot lizard.
Yeah, she's.
18th century e-girls.
I mean, I don't I don't necessarily blame him for wanting to have female company while he's like,
Well, no.
but
Soldiers do stuff.
yeah, he's it's just sort of like, and the one scene is hilarious where she goes to see the. This is the worst scene in the film. Is probably where she goes
Yeah.
and sees the tarot reading gypsy
Yeah.
woman. What, I zoned out for that scene. I'll be honest. Like, what did she even say?
Basically, so she flips up her
It's
3 cards, and the last card is like, oh, this is the card of the moon, which signifies loneliness. And then the female love interest, she's like, what about those 2 lions there? What about them? And she's like, oh, you're gonna, I don't know, sail right through them. You're on your own now, pal. And then so she takes it as she takes it as, okay, I guess I gotta leave these 2 men behind and go my own way.
I mean, it was a very accurate depiction of tarot reading,
Yes.
where they flip 3 cards. 2 of them are just random generic advice that would apply to any person ever,
Yeah,
and then the last one is guessing whether they're lonely or not.
yeah, it's.
And most
it's in this like sewing
20-year-old
shop.
women who go to a tarot reader are probably kind of lonely.
Yeah, it's like.
Yeah, it's,
You have a question about your life. How did you know? Yeah, I think
like,
that
literally one of the things was this card signifies you'll have to make a difficult choice.
yeah,
Wow. It's rare that people have to make difficult choices in their lives.
yeah. I'm not sure if I mean I haven't read the short story. I assume that's in there, and it was left in the film. But like I feel like you didn't need that scene at all. Like she was clearly already upset about him dueling. She could have just left without getting advice from some stupid gypsy. Like it was just. It was like too on the nose. Like the rest of the film is so subtle in it. I mean, it's not like insanely subtle or anything like that. But the way they obviously everything's just at least one level deep, whereas that was just like completely in your face. So I thought that was a bit like what was the point of that scene? Like what was the commentary of her character? Like I didn't quite see how that fit with everything else necessarily. I mean, I guess that's just something that's in the short story that I have not read. So. Maybe if I read that, it makes sense.
maybe you have to be a woman to understand it.
I guess.
Why they go to tarot readers,
I
tarot
guess.
card people? I don't know.
I mean,
I honestly,
sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say honestly, like yeah, if you just didn't have that scene, and you just have a scene more or less of her leaving, and then you still see her like catch up with Carradine in Lubeck, 6 years later. It's been literally 6 years. They're miles and miles away from France and like northeast Germany. You could have done that scene was fine. You could have done the whole thing. But I guess I don't know if it was to just give her like more screen time, like oh look, she's like the 3rd character.
No, I don't think it was anything like that. It must be in the short story, which I have not read.
Okay.
Iron Duke has said she got an offer of marriage from an NCO, which is why she left. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess my
It was
point
the
was the point of her
it
character.
was a dude that had been crippled. He'd lost an arm.
Yeah, I think the point of her character is ultimately to show. Certainly, I would be 99% confident this is what would be in the Joseph Conrad short story. Would be showing how women do not understand duels.
They don't
Would
get
be
all.
the point of her character. If I mean, I don't know if either of you guys have read Heart of Darkness, but it is very. It's a good book. It's quite reactionary, I will say, to say the least. It
That's,
reminds me of Lovecraft in some ways.
That's the one that Apocalypse Now is inspired by, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, but it's in South Africa. Is that or Congo or something?
Yeah. It's in Africa.
It's in Africa.
Yeah, it's in. I mean, it's in sub-Saharan Africa. It's
Like
like
this was the Duelist was 77, and then Apocalypse Now was 79. So they're only 2 years apart.
Well, completely different directors and stuff. I mean, Joseph Conrad
It was
wasn't
a Conrad
Joseph
inspiration.
Conrad wasn't writing the scripts.
I'm aware. I just think it's interesting that two
it's Conrad.
Joseph Conrad adaptations
Yes,
so
fair.
close.
That's true. I mean, when's the last time we got a Joseph Conrad adaptation? Yes.
I think it would be
yes. Heart of
Apocalypse
Darkness
Now, isn't
is
it?
set in the Belgian Congo. Yes, we're getting
Belgian
confirmation
Congo.
from Iron Duke in the chat. The
Thank
more
you, sir.
knowledgeable out of all the everyone in actually on the show.
One of the things I wanted to mention, if I could, about
I'll let you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you're
Thank
allowed.
you. I don't know if it fall under. I guess it's under costumes, but in the movie, you see obviously the fashion changes. They even talk about it in the narrator, and you see it especially going from the end of Napoleonic France to Royalist France when
Yeah.
King Louis the whomever takes back the throne, 18th or something. I don't know.
He was one of the fat ones, wasn't he?
It was 16th was the one that got, but I don't remember which number it was.
He says in the uncle, the loyalist uncle in the royalist, he says I think the 18th. He says the name, but the thing is, you see, pre-Napoleonic France and then post-Napoleonic France, especially when Carradine's character is at his wedding, all of them have like their wigs back on, and they have like their really like puffy coats and dresses. That I looked into it. Obviously, it was during the Jacobin Revolution. It was like, oh, that's just like the decadency of the nobility. So obviously, when they were murking nobility, they some things came out of fashion, and then but after so that's just the first for a royalist France you see. But then you see Carradine go to visit the head of the commission who's going to execute Dubert. Dubert goes to the general of the commission that's going to execute Ferreau, and you see they're doing construction on the house or the building, and they're taking out old furniture and putting in new ones, and then he's putting on again this really elegant, like royal, almost feminine looking dress, and then whenever after that scene, Ferreau gets out, right, he's freed. Well, he's still dressing very explicitly Napoleonic, especially with his hat, right?
Yeah.
That last costume he wears is like pretty much something Napoleon has worn in different paintings.
Yeah, well, but he's still walking.
That's where the allegory becomes very blatant
in your face.
Like, yeah, this is
Napoleon. It's him and his crew that are even just in the streets of France. They're just wearing it, even though they're in the dingy bar, and they're basically you show, I guess, because they'll flip back and forth. You see Carradine in his estate with his wife, and then you see Ferreau or Napoleon, I guess, completely alone in this dingy bar in the backwater of France. And so I liked what they did, and even
that I remember that scene was like a good
Yeah, you get the
back and forth
between the two of them, how their lives have gone.
Yeah, he's happy. Carradine's happy. He's happy. He's got his pregnant wife. He's just reading a book, and then Ferreau is just in this like
shitty bar.
I was like humid, dark bar, doing literally at one of these he's doing nothing. He's just sitting there, and then one of the guys is like, "Hey yo," he's reading the newspaper. He's like, "Hey yo, you remember Dubert? Ain't that the guy you fought multiple times?" And then he gets up. He's like, "What What did you say?
Yeah. We should
He's,
also
he's basically he's seething basically. Yeah,
we should also
coping and seething
briefly.
over
Sorry,
De
go
Beer's
ahead.
success.
Yeah, yeah. We should also quickly mention, one of the reasons their lives end up so differently is Dubert does not join Napoleon after his escape from Elba.
Yeah.
Yeah, which
Incorrectly.
That scene is, I like that scene because there's that I guess that colonel, he comes up, he's like secretly in the carriage, like, hey yo, do you like the emperor? The Mr. Faro says you don't like the emperor, and then he's like, dude, leave me alone. And then he's like, Faro constantly has tried to kill me and slander me. I don't want to hear it. Don't, just whatever. And then he rises to getting out. He's like, ask him what Napoleon has to do about our quarrel any more than Madame de Leon, right? So it's a slight at the very first scene, whenever they both get mentioned, right? The very first scene between them of arguing, and then Faro hears that from the colonel, gets really pissed off, and he's like, and then he starts slandering you even further. He's like, I remember that day he said he never loved the emperor and never cared about him. Da, 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 da. And then at the end of that scene, he's like, good luck to the emperor and those that love him. And the colonel's not even believing it at this point. But then scene shifts again, and then Carradine's character is fine, right? The revolution, I guess you would call it. He's fine. Everyone else is like, somewhere in prison, somewhere on the chopping block, and the colonel, he's just been basically removed from his seat. And then he's like, he looks at him whenever they come into contact in Paris. He's like, Faro was right about you. So and so Faro was just saying slander, baseless slander, but because of what happened, now again, all the Napoleonic soldiers, now they actually believe it, right? And I think that's perhaps one reason whenever at the end, the last scene or last larger scene in the movie, why Carradine is literally a noble, because literally he says to the henchmen, Faro's henchmen who illegally come onto his land and say, hey, let's you got to fight a duel, bro. He's like, he says, I can only have you guys carted off in irons, but he's still bound to honor or even the feeling he has to, I guess, Napoleonic honor or his Napoleonic image, right? So he's like, I have to do this, right?
Yeah.
I can't, even though they're literally backwater nobodies, I can't let them have this.
Yeah.
The part that's sort of set in the awkward period between and during Napoleon's return is where you get some of the best lines in this film of just De Beer trying to he doesn't want to lie, but he also doesn't want to really commit to one side or the other.
Yeah.
Because he's just trying to get on with his life.
Yeah, that's pretty.
He doesn't really care about royalism or Napoleonism. He's just trying to live his life, basically.
Man living, yeah.
And it's just him saying these roundabout things that can sound to anybody like he's agreeing with them, but not 100% committing to them. Because he doesn't say that, yes, I'm 100% a committed supporter of Napoleon.
Yeah.
But he also doesn't say, I hate the emperor and I'm a royalist.
Yeah.
And he does it conversely when he gets married. He has another line.
The uncle is like, he's like, oh, the ogre is going to be sent to St. Helena, and then he asks his new, I guess, nephew-in-law, who's also obviously an officer. He's like, well, what do you think? Where should the ogre be sent? And then he's like, well, I think Napoleon picked his place, like the officer did.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then he's like, look, I just got married. I've already been asked so many questions. So you can just leave me alone.
Yeah, that was a good answer. That was very diplomatic.
Also, he said to the kids whenever it first gets brought up that Napoleon's gone by the children, and the children, they're like, do we really have to send Napoleon to Elba? And then Carradine's like, well, the king and the emperor they couldn't share the same palace. It was too small for the both of them. And I was like, you know what? That's good.
It's a good answer. Damn, I was going to say something. I completely forgot now. Oh, and the ending obviously mirrors Napoleon's final exile to Helena.
Yeah.
Which, and I think the ending is almost hopeful because, I mean, there are some Catholic writings that have said that Napoleon repented at the end of his life, and so we can hope Faro repents as well at some point. Or turns his life around, changes his attitude.
The the ending of this movie is
Oh,
real. It's
it's crisp.
there's so much tension. Like you get the final duel in the ruins,
Yeah. What a crazy setting.
which is yeah,
Location
that castle
scouts.
or whatever it is crazy.
It must just be a bunch of places Ridley Scott knew were like beautiful places from like his whole life. Like him and some other
Mhm.
person in the production team, and it's just like, oh, we'll go there. Like, I don't know how they found all these places. I guess like location scout people would know that, but still.
Yeah, at the end of the movie, it credits the areas it was filmed. It was France, England, and I forget the third place. I'm not sure if it was like Italy or
I think it was Scotland.
Scotland.
So I think
Yeah,
the Russian parts are filmed in Scotland
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
because they're just trying to get snow.
Yeah.
That I like how even in the ending scene, again, you still, or like the ending, sorry, duel, you still see obviously the wildlife. Like there's like a cow, just like standing,
Yeah.
standing
Yeah,
there,
yeah, yeah.
which again
Yeah,
still
it's
adds
just
to what you said earlier
it's
about.
just these little bits. They're just like these extra details that flesh it out a lot more.
Yeah.
It creates this picture of an actual place.
Yeah.
It's not sterile and uninhabited.
Yeah. It's just crazy comparing this to Kingdom of Heaven is a perfect example of a terrible movie in the same vein. It's a period piece with a massive, way bigger budget, and
Mhm.
it feels like I'm watching Game of Thrones when I'm watching it, like an even worse Game of Thrones somehow. And it's
Mhm.
that movie sucks. That movie is so bad. We've talked about how bad that movie is on multiple episodes, I have to say, but
Yeah.
still, that movie.
One day might have to do a dedicated episode for it.
God, maybe.
The coolest part of
Maybe.
that movie is again just the costume of like King Baldwin. That's it.
Yeah.
Everything else, garbage.
Yeah, he makes like the costumes accurate once they get to the Middle East.
Yeah,
Then he's like, now they're actually gonna look like how they looked. But when they're in Europe, they're dirty and they're dumb and they dress in rags, and Europe is constantly blue, like just a
Yeah.
constant blue
Yeah,
color palette.
what the hell did
And it's
he
always cold enough that your breath is frosting.
Yeah.
you're
And
like
everyone dresses in black,
Central France.
and the dumb Norseman will be lectured to by the sub-Saharan African about not pissing upstream from your camp.
Yeah, that movie it would be like this would
And
be the
Bailey
perfect
is a Reddit atheist.
yeah, this would be the perfect movie to compare it to. Just like this movie does everything right to make it doesn't even feel like a period piece insofar as you get so sucked into the world you don't even realize you're watching something different. Whereas that other movie, it doesn't even feel like a period piece again because it just feels like
It
you're
has
watching a
it
fantasy
has the
movie or
morality of
something.
modern people.
Yeah,
Literally, the only characters that keep the morality of the period are the Muslims, because even the devout Catholics in that film are just stereotypical, like overplayed
them all.
megalomaniacs.
Kill them
It's like a
all.
parody of Catholicism.
yeah. Iron Duke is saying Ridley Scott's last good film was Black Hawk Down. I've not watched that in a long
True.
time, so
Well, you know that it's good because leftists complain about being racist.
well
So
then it must be good. It must be good. Yeah.
that
I-
movie that is kind of funny.
I don't know how many times.
It's a good movie, but there's funny depictions of black people in that film. They just run around crazily, just shooting anything they see. It's
Yeah.
hilarious.
I think we should, at some point, we should just go through the Ridley Scott filmography, maybe. Like he's he's an interesting director insofar as he does this movie perfect, does Alien and Blade Runner, they're also amazing movies, and then it's just like I don't know what happens after that. He just goes off the rails basically.
And there's just a mix of like good and then shit.
Yeah,
And it's just there's no consistency between them. He'll just flip back and forward constantly.
yeah. I mean that happens with some directors. They do like a few good ones and then they go bad. But I don't know. Normally, I don't know. It seems like a unique trajectory is all I'll say for a director.
Mhm.
Because it's normally like a director will rehash what they've done, but it seems as though at a certain age, he just lost all his testosterone or something changed in the way he
You also
viewed
got to
the
remember
world.
that he started older because he was in his early 40s when he made The Duelist.
Interesting.
Like he's 80 something now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Damn. Yeah. The only real one left, I guess, is like Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, his stuff's still solid.
I thought I heard in one of those recent movies that he cast himself in, he had like an orgy, even though he's like 86 or something like
Yeah, that sounds like something he would do.
that.
There's one movie I watched recently, a Clint Eastwood movie, Absolute Power. And it's basically like an anti-Bill Clinton movie. It's so funny. Like, Clint Eastwood plays a jewel thief who witnesses like a murder of basically this like, you know, blonde socialite who is banging the president. And so the Secret Service are trying to track down this jewel thief, Clint Eastwood, to like kill him. And it's just like, it's so funny. It was pretty much exactly yeah, this like anti-Bill Clinton movie. He's like, this Bill Clinton guy, he's banging prostitutes when he should be running the country. He's like, that's the message of the movie.
That was actually an okay Clint Eastwood.
I'm impressed. I did okay with that. I've been working on that one. I've been working on. Oh, what's the other one?
I'm looking at this movie. Gene Hackman plays the president.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so good. And friggin'
And Ed Harris is in it.
Ed Harris
This movie
is
has
in it.
Clint Eastwood, Gene Hackman,
Yo,
and Ed
and there's
Harris.
one more crazy cast. There's one more crazy
this.
cast. It's what's his name? Jenkins is in it.
Oh, Richard Jenkins.
He plays as Hitman.
Okay.
It's a good movie. Like, I'm not shitting on the movie, but it is just like such a 90s Republican movie. But you know, I like it. It's a good movie, obviously. Oh, we've got Iron Duke here has said we should review Zulu and Master and Commander. We are doing Master and Commander later this month. Zulu we will probably do at some point, undoubtedly. But we are doing The Man Who Would Be King later this month. It's like a similar sort of thing to Zulu, I guess, kind of. And then the other one,
time period.
The other one we said was what?
I thought it was Zulu.
No. We said.
But maybe I'm forgetting.
Was it Master and Commander?
Oh, Lawrence in Arabia.
Lawrence of Arabia, yes.
Of Arabia, rather.
Yes, Lawrence of Arabia. Yes, that should be. They're the ones planned for White History Month. They're just gonna be single movie episodes, but each movie, obviously, I mean, we've almost talked for an hour about this movie, with a little bit of extra.
Oh, Lawrence of Arabia's gonna go for ages.
I don't know when we're gonna do that one. I don't know when we're gonna. We'll have to. I don't know if we're gonna fit all of these movies into June, but we'll see how we go.
White History season.
It's just all summer, winter long.
Yeah.
It's winter here for us.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Oh yeah.
It can be summer. It can be summer for the northern hemisphere.
Yeah.
Chads.
Where we're trying
White boy summer. It works.
Trying to draw in the audience.
See, this is what you don't. White boy summer is year long around. Because it just fits to the southern hemisphere.
That's so true. And
it's
then
all year.
And then the 6 months of spring and autumn aren't real. We don't include them.
No, exactly. It's summer, winter. That's all.
Iron Duke says the Indian playing the Gurkha is the one bad thing about The Man Who Would Be King.
That is true. That dude does not look like a Gurkha.
I will say that is not the only thing that's sort of.
They should have got a white man to play him, and then it would have been. Then I would have been happy.
I think
if they'd gotten Alec Guinness to play the Gurkha,
yeah,
that would have been solid.
I think The Man Who Would Be King. My issues with that, I don't like Freemasons. I guess is my one issue with that movie. So that's what'll be interesting about that movie to unpack when we get there. I don't know. I think we've pretty much said we've discussed like I feel like at least 85% of this movie at this point.
Yeah.
You know.
I have one question for you two boys, and I know the answer probably, but what is your favorite duel in the movie?
Oh.
I really like the opening one. I think it really draws you in.
Between Faro and the nephew, yeah.
Yeah.
The fat man.
Yeah.
I
It's such a good opening because it sets up how quickly they can be over and how deadly they are. Like it's just
Yeah.
the dude messes up and then that's it. He's dead. It just and Faro barely even pokes him with it. Basically, just lets him run himself onto his sword.
Yeah. And there's
funny, and he
no
walks
dialogue.
off.
Yeah.
Yeah, no
The way he
dialogue.
walks off is so swag.
Yeah, no, he shakes his hand. He's pissed and he just walks off. My favorite part is he says la after a lot of these things,
Oh,
which is
yeah.
Yeah.
just there. It's just like there.
Yeah. Harvey
My
Keitel is
favorite,
so good. Anyway, yeah.
I say my favorite, honestly, like it's shifted watching this movie 4 times. I think my favorite, even though it is nothing special, like Jack said, I do like that first duel between the two guys in that small courtyard.
That's a good
Um,
one, yeah. I mean, they're
it's
all
mostly just
great.
'cause
That's the thing.
they're all fantastic. It's mostly because they're just both so
That
like so angry.
the icing on the cake of that duel is how Faro's like mistress jumps on
It's
him.
just- yeah,
It's like the perfect ending. And that's another thing that's even more embarrassing for Faro is the bear got injured, but it was by his
by his
mistress.
mistress.
Yeah.
Faro never got a touch on him, but
Yeah.
the bear got scratched up by his washer,
Yeah.
lady.
Yeah. Um.
My favorite parts are all the parts with Christina Rains as Adele. The his
Oh
wife.
yes, yes.
They're my
She's
favorite
lovely.
shots.
She's lovely.
Right.
Have either of you guys watched Bad Lieutenant, the first one with Harvey Keitel?
I've seen the the one with Nicolas Cage.
Ah, that's so different. The one with Harvey Keitel is like genuinely like horrific, like very intense, and it's just basically watching Harvey Keitel do drugs for 90 minutes, and then he has like a road to Damascus moment and repents at the end of the movie. It's very intense, but it is so full. It is the normally whenever you see people doing drugs in a movie, you're like, oh, that's whatever. You don't really think about it as you would like sex or violence. But the amount he does drugs in this movie is like, this is excessive. This is like making me feel uncomfortable. Like this just every second scene is him just like doing coke or like heroin or something.
I've not seen it. I just looked up the images of him in the church. So at the end of the movie,
Yeah.
he's like a Roman Catholic, nominal Catholic, and he says, "You know what? I don't want to go to hell."
Yeah. The movie is it's a Catholic movie, I would say in some sense, but yeah. I mean, we've done an episode on it on the show, so if you're interested,
I just remember
will-
hating the Nicolas Cage one.
well,
That movie's so bizarre.
yeah.
It's Werner Herzog. So.
Yeah, I think at that point Werner Herzog is just doesn't. It's not that he's lazy; he just doesn't care. It's like in a cool way. It's like I'm just gonna do literally whatever I think
makes
of.
no sense.
Yeah, like he's not interested in making sense or making something comprehensible.
Yeah.
I think we're pretty much done here for today, to be honest. Unless anyone's got
Voila.
any other questions, comments, points of interest.
Let me just skim my notes real quick. I think I got everything that was. Yeah. I guess the only other thing that I would say, not to just circle back too far, but let's see. Dubert, I believe spares his life. So he
Oh yeah.
he spares his
We
life.
should probably talk about the resolution of the story.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean that speaks to the character of aristocracy, because the whole framing of the Napoleonic War is that aristocracy is evil and blah blah blah, and this movie like explicitly shows that noblesse oblige, that is actually instilled into many of the aristocracy, and he has this sense of obligation to Thoreau, and it doesn't even like he implicitly understands that he's superior to Thoreau. Certainly at the end of the film, he understands that, but not in this way that leftists have programmed people to understand hierarchy. It's like, because obviously, as right wing, for lack of a better term, reactionaries or right wing or Christians, etc., we're not anti-hierarchy. Like hierarchy is not inherently bad or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just you get that sense of noblesse oblige, particularly when he saves him from the gallows, or from the guillotine, I suppose, more specifically. Although, did the royalists use the guillotine to kill the
I think they
revolutionaries?
did actually. I think it caught on
Convenience.
just in general. Like, I'm trying to think. I think the last dude executed with the guillotine was in 1979 or something.
Yo,
What?
yo,
I think it was either in France or Germany.
yo.
1977, I think.
77.
What?
Well, the year the film came out. Then
That's so trippy. What the hell?
I'm pretty sure. The funny thing is, Christopher Lee witnessed it. He was
Wow.
present.
Oh,
Because it's Christopher Lee. He
What?
was everywhere. He witnessed the last ever execution by guillotine.
what did the guy do?
I think he was a murderer. I think he murdered someone.
I
I
mean,
don't remember.
whatever. I'm not gonna judge the death penalty, but that's crazy.
That's just neat. But yeah, so but he spares his life twice, right? So he goes up to the commissioner, and then he's got two marshals behind his back. He's like, "Well, I'll just say, just don't kill the guy." And the guy's like, "Okay, whatever, man." And then at the end of the movie, at the end of the fifth duel, again, Keitel charges, not physically, right, necessarily, but he charges, shoots both shots, and after that he's like, "All right, I guess I'm dead." And then Carradine's like thinking about it. He's like, "No, I'm not gonna kill you, but your life, by every rule of single combat, every single rule of single combat, your life is mine. You're gonna act towards me as a dead man. Get out of my sight." And so Keitel obviously doesn't know the first time, but he gets his life saved by Carradine's character twice, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
Or was
And then that's where you get like Fro's basically been exiled.
twice. I guess he's like twice more or less, right? He gets
Which
the first time in Elba where he comes back, right? He comes back, and then final. Huh.
Yeah. Same
And then
as
you get
Napoleon.
the mirroring with Napoleon,
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, right.
And that final shot of the film, as I think you
which is
pointed
incredible.
out, Nooch,
Oh,
is literally the painting of Napoleon overlooking
Yeah,
something. It's
Saint
just-
Helena.
Saint Helena, yeah.
and the nice part of it being a movie is it's a moving shot, and there's multiple paintings of Napoleon and Saint Helena with different angles of like directly from back, from the side, and you can see his face in some,
Yeah.
but not others. But in this one, you get to see him moving and deliberately
He
taking.
moves through
multiple
all
shots.
of them, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he moves through all of them, and then the lighting changes, right? So like you have like it's really dark, and then the light starts to move as obviously he's moving, and then eventually
You
he
get
goes.
the sun breaks with the clouds and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's such
and they
a
close in
beautiful
on his
shot.
face. I also like how it's raining as he's walking up to it, and then there's one scene where you're hearing what Carradine had said to him because obviously we didn't see it. You see, as the duel ends, you just see Carradine's character walking off, and then his friends are like, "Yo, did you kill him? Is he dead?" And then Carradine's just not even saying anything, so we don't know
Yeah.
until you see Keitel's character fully dressed up somewhere else.
Yeah.
And then, but you see him walking up. You hear the monologue, or the dialogue from that scene, and then it's raining, and then there's one scene where he's like walking, and he like stands there with his hands in his pocket, and he looks up at the sky, and he like sighs audibly, and then
Yeah.
it leads into the final scene. But it's literally so I didn't notice a lot of these things on my first 3 viewings, but like all that last like 25 minutes, crisp, perfect.
Yeah. It's so cathartic as well, the ending. Because it's just, it's over.
Well, yeah, and the actual last scene is you get a close up on his face, and then you see his like final breath, like he just like, and then he just you don't hear the sigh, but he just lets it go, and then boom, that's where it ends.
Has the Duelist been like re-released on Blu-ray yet, or it must have surely?
I think it has. The thing that we talk about all the time is that it hasn't been released by Criterion for some reason.
I feel like Ridley
Is
Scott
that
must
like
have disowned it
on
or
a
something
release?
behind the scenes. Oh, I don't
Dunno.
know. Like, I wonder if he's self-aware enough to realize how reactionary this film is, or how opposed to his more recent films this is. I don't know. Oh, well, we can look forward to the Prometheus sequels.
That there is another one. He's making another Alien.
I know. We should go through the Alien franchise at some point. I feel like it's an interesting thing to plumb the depths of. Because it's a movie franchise.
I could do the first. I could do Aliens. They're great movies. Very different, but they're both great in their own genres.
It is interesting, like, because
And then
they're...
Alien 3 is like A lot of
fine.
people say it's bad. But it's fine. It's
Yeah.
like okay. And then Alien Resurrection is hilarious. It's
Yeah.
terrible, but it's hilarious.
Yeah.
And then I don't want to watch any of the prequels.
No, they
I'm
suck.
not torturing myself.
I
with it.
remember. I think I went and saw Prometheus for like my birthday party that year. Like it happened to come out whenever I was turning. I can't remember, 15, 16 or whatever it was. And so I like took my friends to go see Prometheus, and it was just like, I guess that was okay. Like I remember when you're little, when you're like maybe 13, 14, maybe 15, whenever you see a movie, like that was the best movie I've ever seen. And then it's like at a certain point you start to realize, oh no, there are movies that suck. And yeah, I think Prometheus is one of the first. I think, and also I think I saw Indiana Jones, the fourth one, for one of my birthdays. I've had so many misses for my birthday that I end up going to see. It's unfortunate. Yeah, I remember seeing the fourth Indiana Jones. That sucked. Oh man.
Dark of the Covenant's just aliens, bro. It's just aliens. Wait, that's Crystal Skull. My bad.
Are they making another
that was
Indiana
Aliens.
Jones?
Yes, it
Is there-
is directed by James Mangold, who's a good
Harrison-
director, but it's a
Okay.
shame that he's on that project.
Does Harrison Ford die?
It's
in this
being
one?
written by the woman that wrote the Fleabag comedy series. She's a feminist,
Never heard of.
and she self-inserted herself into as a character in the new one.
Yeah.
So Indiana Jones is probably going to die, and she will be his
Right.
successor, and then we'll make female Indiana Jones movies
Damn. So
forever into eternity
so Harrison Ford just comes back to every franchise he was part of and dies.
to die. Yep.
Well, he was only in Star Wars and Indiana Jones, I guess.
He's a grumpy old man. He's just like, I don't like living. And Blade Runner. Don't.
Well, he
Blade
says
Runner-
Indiana
Oh
Jones
yeah,
is the
Blade Runner
character
as
he
well. What
loves.
the hell? What the
Except
hell?
2049 was actually good.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
That's true.
that's because Ryan Gosling is literally me. But that's it.
That's true. That's true.
That's true. All right,
Alright.
all right.
I
Let's
think-
let's
I
leave it
think
there.
we'll-
We've completely drifted away from just. I think people like a little bit of chit chat at the end. That's what I like
Final-
with the podcast.
Final point: Keith Carradine's blonde-haired, blue-eyed. He beats the brown-haired, brown-eyed. White History Month saved.
Yep, correct.
Stream crash.
Freud's BTF. Aram, shut up. Cut the stream. We're
Yeah,
done.
Yeah. Goodbye.
Then.
See ya.